Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here this evening, and thanks for your patience while we get started just a little late. But anyhow, let's go ahead and get the City of North Plains City Council regular session meeting from Monday, March 6, 2023 at 7:05. And please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Lori, roll call. Thank you. Councilor Page.
Here.
Councilor Kendall.
Here.
Councilor Payton. Here. Councilor Smith.
Here.
Mayor Linehan. Here. And Councilors Martinez and Sheldon are excused this evening. All right, thank you very much. Our consent agenda. So we have several things on our consent agenda. Obviously, this evening's agenda. The approval of February 21st, 2023 City Council minutes. Resolution number 2218 appointing Alakananda Yelena, hope I got that right, to the library board for a term through June 30th, 2026. And resolution 2219 amending the city manager appointment agreement. First, are there any corrections or additions to the February 21st minutes that we need to be aware of?
Right now, I had to move my personal on. But for Chris Barron, I thought that he's right here. I thought that I said that I asked that is there only two applicants, you only have one spot, and we only put the resume. And with that being said, I thought I made a motion to approve Chris Barron at the time. But here it says I just asked him, hey, he did candidate to see he's on the budget committee.
It was because it was the resolution was later in the meeting. This was a consensus vote for one of the two applicants. I mean,
okay. All right. And I guess I may move to move them forward.
you might have made a move, but it wasn't it's not a formal.
Okay.
That came with the resolution later
All
on.
right. I thought I didn't move at the very beginning. Okay. All right, thanks.
All right. Any other comments or questions regarding the consent agenda? All right, hearing none. Can I have a motion?
Move for approval of the consent agenda. For March 6th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Item number 6 on our agenda is public comment, and obviously this is something that we ask folks to come forward to speak on matters not on our agenda. And I do note that we do have a letter from Jeff Johnson regarding the top fees. Do we need to read that into the record? I don't think so, do we? Okay.
No.
And is there anyone in Jessie Mays wishing to come forward during this time? Let the record show there's no one coming up to the podium this evening at Jessie Mays. And is there anyone online that we need to be aware of?
I'm trying to get back to Zoom, but can't do it.
No.
I haven't heard anyone speak.
No. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see, item number 7A, we have the presentation of the 2023 capital improvement update plan. And I think you have a PowerPoint for us to review.
Yeah.
Andy, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
At this time, I'd like to invite Brian Feeney, the city engineer with 3J Consulting. I think everyone's met Brian. He's here last spring or summer to go over some capital improvement plan update. So we wanted Brian to come on by and chat with the council and give an update on the construction activity to expect this summer. I'm going to try this again.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I think it was about June of last year when I presented kind of that first pass of the CIP projects where we're at. It was kind of 6 months after you guys for the city adopted the fuel tax. And once again, it gets us up. Hopefully, we can give you a little brief update of some of the projects that you guys are aware that have been completed. But more or less the ones that are in active design, so you're aware of what's going to be happening this summer and fall. So this is a very similar map that I presented last year, just to help identify projects. The ones in red are the ones that have been completed or near completion. So obviously the new water towers have been completed. The West Union Trail has been completed and finally signed off. Cottage Street is one of the newer ones that we finished up, or it's very close. And one drove by there. There's one of the last 88 ramps that had to get fixed. Looks like they poured that either today or last week. We'll verify that and that project will wrap up very shortly. The first segment of North Avenue was wrapped up by the Britton Hill development and has been accepted, and it's in its maintenance period right now. So it's still within a year, we'll come back, look at anything that may have cracked through division, and the contractor would have to repair those at that time. But moving on to the yellow items are the ones that we have currently in design. We're getting close to these purpose. As of last week, the 313 sidewalk extension from Veterans Park all the way up to the Civic was a sidewalk. But we're doing a pavement overlay on the entire section, as well as a water line update for the water master plan. Those plans have been submitted to Clean Water Services for permitting. We're in the permit process for that. We anticipate advertising for that to bid towards the end of this month and start construction this summer. As for a few of the other ones, is that we have Glen Coast sidewalk. That's the one in green. We've had that one pretty much ready to go, but it was a small enough project that we wanted to package it with another project. One, to allow for better competitive pricing. We see larger projects entertain better contract, or larger contractors, I should say, coming in, and you get some better pricing when you kind of package larger sidewalks and concrete and things like that. So we're actually going to put that together with the commercial street sidewalks, and that's something that council requested to get that added on last year, was along the south end of commercial. We fill in the gaps, since we sent from West Union, you got Metz Trail to that, but then there's still some sidewalk gaps that get you to the downtown core. We're actually gonna, it's kind of in a lighter or a smaller yellow just because it's on both sides of the street. We're gonna fill in the gaps all the way up to City Hall on the south side. And then on the north side, right about 311 to the church property, there's a piece of property that's got a gap there. That's in design right now. We plan to have that go into construction this summer.
Brian, is that going to involve a little bit of a intersection or curb return improvement at 311, the former Rusty Piston building?
Correct. So with the sidewalks going in on commercial, we also have a 311 extension, but the commercial street project is going to have 88 ramps on all four sides. And in order to have it as one of a safe crossing, we're going to create some curb bump out. So it's going to pull those 88 ramps in together, so the pedestrian has less of a travel through the road. So it's not going to have as wide of a field driving, but it's going to be 2 lanes of traffic, just like it is. You just won't have a sea of asphalt on the other side. One thing that does, it brings that crossing to the pedestrians closer together, causing them to cross quicker. Also, is helps with speed. When you have curb bump outs, if those curves in a little closer, it slows it down in those little locations.
And that's gonna be on 311?
Commercial and 311, so all four corners.
Okay.
Yes. kind of where you guys have that flashing, crosswalk now. Yeah.
That's staying there,
It is gonna be there, it might be in a different location, but it is still not.
okay.
Is that, can I ask, would that bump out, how far would that be out? Is that like 4 feet or what? I'm just trying to.
I'm gonna still allow, I believe, 24 foot from curb to curb, so 2 lanes of traffic. So normal travel lanes 12 feet.
So like on Main Street, it would be, look something like,
Still on Main Street, where then on the backside of Bob Valley, we would have parking. So it's only coming in at the intersection itself, and then going back out further to allow the street parking.
is that a concrete the way we do that today, or is that just something we want to do, or?
Oh, the crossing itself.
Yeah, or the bump out, that is,
Well, the bump out is gonna be curved, so it'll be a concrete curve,
okay,
you know, and then it'll have a sidewalk on the backside of that. So very similar to what you
so
see.
the sidewalk bump up right against the curb next to the road, it won't have any green space in it, right?
No,
Okay, that's what I like, because that's not gonna make an issue. That 3 feet of grass between, you know, the sidewalk and the curb. Yeah, I mean.
correct. I mean, some of the sidewalks we are putting in another area is gonna be for the city's standard cross section, which would be curved. A planter strip, which is about 4 to 5 feet wide, so you put some street trees in there and a sidewalk. So anything less than 4 feet, I agree, it's not an area that can sustain a growth of anything. But at those locations, there will be ADA ramps, there'll be a concrete sidewalk drop down. We won't have a small park dust area or restaurant over there. One of the other projects that we will be starting in the summer is obviously suggested the public works facility building. So planning commission is going to be hearing land use on that this Wednesday. We've actively have our recommended contractor on board for CMGC, but you guys, you'll see that at the next meeting. Just due to the ice, we couldn't get the proper notification out in time. But we are moving forward with final design and permit. So our design team is actively moving that forward to break ground this summer. On the public works.
Yeah, and the, so I think I mentioned this before, we had 8 contractors bid. We interviewed 3 of them, scheduled to do that about a week and a half ago, but the ice storm interfered with that. So we had to reschedule 3 days later. Because of that, because of state law requires you to have a 7-day protest period when you proceed, you know, you give the notice to award to a company. There's a protest period to wait out, and we just bumped up against that today because of the ice, because of our delay in the schedule. But the firm that we're recommending going with, we had a 12-month construction schedule. They have it in their plans to do an 8-month construction schedule. So that may be a little aggressive, but they feel like they can get it done quicker than we were anticipating. So that wasn't even really a factor in the scoring. That was just a good thing to know.
Bonus, yes.
Yeah.
A couple of the other projects that we're moving forward in design, but we felt to separate some of these projects because we did not want to have construction happening at all times throughout the entire city. So those are the ones we're hoping to start this summer for a few month schedule. And then towards the fall and winter, we're going to be looking at Pacific Street Avenue as Main Street as well. We're actively designing these, so we're going to be ready so we can, you know, advance one of the other ones get completed in time. And then the Jesse Mays perimeter sidewalk, as well as 309 from North Avenue all the way down to Jesse Mays, and 311 from Jesse Mays Park all the way down to that new intersection at Commercial Street. One thing that we've been looking at for over the past few months, and Andy, you can help speak to this as well, but the Ghost Creek Trail, we've decided to put that on more on a hold just because there's been some questions of, you know, is it the right thing to be spending money on right now to a trail that might not go anywhere, as well as it was identified in the fuel tax program of the Cave Creek Trail extension. But in talking with city staff and ourselves, we felt that putting or allowing some of more of the city's funds that are allocated to it on the sidewalks and the existing core. So we looked at sidewalks on both sides of Pacific Street now. sidewalks on both sides of 309 from North Avenue to the park,
Mhm.
as well as from the park along 311 down to Commercial Street. Our initial estimates are showing that being a cost savings than boardwalk projects. So it'll allow, I think, if that's the direction that we want to go, but it was something that ultimately you guys want to have some sidewalks around town that will fill in some of those gaps that we don't currently have, safe sidewalks. I believe, and then just as an update, I got an update from the engineer from Brent Hills Development for the rest of North Avenue. They're currently designing both the east end and the west end. They identified they're looking at fall of this year, winter this year, doing the east end of North Avenue. So that'll kind of line up with our 309 improvement projects. So those will be done right around the same time. And then the west end along the school property all the way to Gordon Road will be done next summer. So what they're planning.
Question on that Brent Hill, right now, when you turn that corner going west on North Avenue, that lighting is so poor there. Is there any additional lighting in that intersection on North and Shady Brook?
I know they have a left turn lane. They're
That's
starting
coming.
construction soon.
Right.
I believe they're finalizing their Washington County. I have not seen those plans. So I can get a copy to verify, but when we have them lighting out North Avenue on both sides for that east section, that little yellow section there will be street lighting as part of that package. So they should have one close to that intersection, at least on North Avenue side.
TV doesn't give up much lighting there.
Yeah.
So it is very dark, hard to see that turn lane.
Yeah, I could definitely look into the West Union plans. I just haven't seen.
Great.
Do you know if they will replace, there's existing sidewalks on the east end of North Avenue from Glencoe to 309? And there's existing sidewalks on the north side behind that development. Are they going to tear those up and create new ones when they do the street?
Yes, along North Avenue.
Yeah,
Yeah, that section of North Avenue is going to be the full 3-foot wide lane.
yeah.
One wide sidewalks on the south side of North Avenue, maybe very similar to what you guys have seen the new sections are. And then a realignment of the sidewalks on the north side. So yeah, they'll be redeveloped in some way, but there will be sidewalks at the end of the day.
I have 3 things.
Oh.
Are we interested in answering 3 now, or are we just hopping it?
We think doing it. I mean, yeah.
All right, so I thought, I thought you talked about the sidewalks on Glencoe, or those will be extended, yeah. First off, I want to talk about budgeting. Budgeting, a lot of the projects we have are always over cost, and our budget kind of underfunded by at least 20%. With that being said, can we just budget, why not bid all these at once? Have one contractor do, instead of do bidding one street, and then bidding another street, and hey, the cost of them bid 2 streets together. How come we don't bid them all at once and then say, well, I understand, like, well, you want to going, being torn apart at the same time? True. Why don't we just have one contractor do it all, and they can just do it out, like we do this section, and this section, section 1, 2, and 3, or maybe give the contract off to one contractor and then have them do a phase it out. Yeah. We're not doing that for cost savings. And also, both sides of the streets should always be done. Now, like, well, we did this one side of the street and hey, it'd be cheaper just to do 2 sides of the street. Of course. We should do both sides of the streets should be considered for all those projects.
When we originally set up the recommended projects based on council's input and the city's input for the fuel tax projects, as well as understanding what was going to anticipate from that, the funds from that, if I recall correctly, we were picking some, let's pick one sidewalk for now, so we can hit more streets.
No, we shouldn't do that. We should probably be.
Or you're going to be cutting down
Yeah.
a few of the others.
Because really, both sides of the street, you do the construction once, so people are impacted are only impacted once, and you save the cost for that. If the idea is to have it spider, half and then half and, a quarter. That's just ridiculous. I know you get to have more area, but it's no area that's incomplete. So I thought that when we're doing this is all for both sides of the street, not just half the street. That's just would interesting. It's not really solving this. You have to go back and maybe we did have some of the time or not at all. So that seems false. That seems like we're just trying to just do some stagecraft and not real improvements. So I was always thinking both sides of the street would be done. I had no idea that you're going to do one side of the street and maybe some other time do the second half.
No, well, we're really only talking about Pacific Street. And then two sections around Jesse May. Yeah. Yeah, Main Street was going to be both sides. I mean, I get your point, and that's why we surveyed both sides. We're kind of taking the community survey results about people wanting more sidewalks. All right, let's pause a boardwalk right now and just look at sidewalks on both sides. But we have plenty of examples in the town where we do have, blocks length of sidewalks on one side for a variety of reasons. And people use that. That is better than nothing, sometimes. But to your point, why not, if we're going to do one side, why not do them both at the same time? Because of the construction impacts, because it's already surveyed, it doesn't take much more. Yeah. But right, so that's what we're proposing now. Both sides here, both sides here, both sides here, and both sides here. The one that we wouldn't have that is all we're doing, and this is some grant funds that we're using for 314, 313. Yeah, 313.
Also,
And a water line and an overlay, just like having a cottage. We're filling in the sidewalk here between the Veterans Park and Pacific Street because there is a bit of a sidewalk here on one side. Actually, we're going to take this all the way to Claxter, aren't we?
You're correct, both sides of 313.
Okay, yeah. So it's going to go both sides up to Claxter. And then it connects to where the Claxter sidewalks are.
One side, the first section I mean done is along Glencoe, the side off to the right.
Yeah.
It's County, not ours.
Yeah.
That was the only side I thought we were not going to do both sides on.
It just comes down to cost.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
when you're adding curb, when you're adding gutter, when you're adding sidewalk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So doing half and then come back again and later on, maybe do another half. Just seems a waste of money. You don't do it again. In the same area.
But I think you just said that they're doing both sides on Pacific and both sides on Main and then both sides on 313 up to.
313 is only on the west side, right? Up to
Right.
Pacific and then
But-
both sides.
But both sides up to Claxter.
True, we're saying that now, but the original planning it was onto one side, and now we're saying, hey, you can probably do this. It already been planned for both sides. That's my and about this, most of the communicated to me that we're only one side because if it was communicated with one side, I would have jumped into no, it's the book.
Okay. Well, that's what we're doing. That's what we're proposing now.
The second part of why not do fitting all of us with one contract and this is the phase before.
At this stage, we would have to have all the plans 100% done and close to permitting, because we don't want to get into a scenario that we get a project that we're not going to know when we're really going to be able to release permits. So that would require us to package all these up, get those designed, and then we'll be going out to get into this fall. Or is one of the reasons we can package a couple of these up to help maximize that, or minimize those. That's what we were looking at on some of these as well, that you get bigger projects. What if that one project, as just thinking in my experience, what if that one contractor that was awarded and selected wasn't performing as best as we could, and now they're contracted for all the sidewalks? We also had two small city allotment grants that were awarded, one being along 313 for the pavement of the water line, as well as commercial street sidewalks. One of those needs to be done by the end of this year or end of this summer if we want to be able to apply for another grant. ODOT only allows you to have 2 active grants open in order to be considered for a future one. So we're really pushing to get one either commercial street or 315 done, so we can apply for that next one.
So it's for granting, you can't do a grant for. And I 2 grants with the contractor, you can do it separately or.
No, I mean, we can construct it, we're just not set up right now to be ready to permit those. We talked when we kicked this off a year ago, packages all into one entire large package.
Right.
We could plan that way. The design and permitting is not going to be there to do that to start construction this summer.
What would stop us from, waiting till our ducks are on the road? And then, we can wait out.
You could do that, you can wait, you wouldn't be able to capitalize on any ODOT small allotment grants. So you lose a year
So the grants,
if you want them for 313 and commercial, they're tied. So it's a potential loss in funding.
right,
Yeah, they upped that amount to $250,000 and it's not a big lift to try to get that money. So we need at least one of these projects closed out by September.
so we're piecing them out because there's grants that are like that way.
No, we're not piecing it out that way. It's just normally you wouldn't take on half of the city in one contract. Or at least that is the way we understood it a year ago when this was done.
And I think there's some consistency too with the grant process and that if you're applying for these grants and then you're getting them and the state sees that your sort of overall project, like, you know, I think they might be, and maybe I might be misspeaking on this, but I know that in CDBG world, if community development block grant world, if they see that a city is working towards a goal, this is the goal, right? They are more likely to help them reach their goal in different segments and by awarding them like small grants, small amount of money. And I don't know if that's true with small city allotment grants, but it feels that way. It seems like it's that way. If they see that this is the end goal, they're more inclined to give them to us each year that we apply for that.
So my understanding now, instead of doing it all at once to be cost effective, with the larger we get scale, actually break it into smaller bits, saves us money. Is that correct?
One large project that doesn't necessarily save you all the money. A small section at 300 feet of sidewalk, you're going to have a premium for that because you got the mold feet and all that. And if you combine that with another one, that's another 500 feet from side. There is a breakover, I think, on a very large one. You're now entertaining very large contractors who can take on a large project. So they have higher overhead. You might miss out on some of those middle guys. I don't know if there's a perfect size project that can help say this is the most cost effective way to do it. I fully agree. I'm packaging some other stuff together, like water line projects. If you do in our world, if you have a project that has 100 feet of water line, 8-inch water line, and you got one with 1,000 foot of water line, you're going to get a better price on the pipe for the 1,000 foot. You buy the bulk, right? Same with some of these projects. But doing all one project, I don't know if you're saving as much if you have 4 projects. We can package these together right now. What we're thinking is, got my notes for summer construction. I mean, we were already thinking the Glen Coast side one would come up. Makes sense. It's close together. 313th Avenue and potentially Pacific Street or Main Street can go together. Or we just wait for Pacific and Main to happen at one time, which makes sense. It's one long L to get right. A good contractor. It's a disruption in the neighborhood, but it's one disruption for that section.
Yeah.
And then maybe obviously the north end with Pacific Park and 309 to 311 makes sense to do it one time because you're going to see North Avenue construction. So phasing it, but phasing it in bids. Some competitive bids, and we might get that first package contractor's doing a great job. He bids the next one, but he already knows the city, knows the process. He might give a better rate to it.
313th is basically 3 projects too, right? It's some sidewalk, it's a water line upsize, and it's an overlay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For one contract.
Yeah. So, Counselor Page, I know you started this by saying all of our projects are overbid. This is one that wasn't too big. It was an overlay on Commercial Street. That was like $200,000 or something. That came under budget and within the time. So it does happen. The last couple of years have been kind of screwy. And this one in particular, this just had way too many complications. We're getting into projects that are much simpler now.
Yeah, so we have windows actually. How much?
Yeah.
Cool.
This one was commercial. Cottage Street would have been, but when they opened up this segment right here,
Yeah.
we had a deluge. We had just the most rain we had all year, and they found this was very soft here, so they had to over excavate that, fill that in. That was, I think, the one area that it probably was a change order, but I think it was already within an approval. So, I mean, every project has unknowns, but like I said, these aren't super complicated. This one with the bridge and the floodplain and the embankment and design changes, that one was a nightmare, but the rest of these are going to be pretty simple.
So what I'm hearing is we're not gonna push or do all these in one contract, which would save costs, because it would not save costs. Because we happen to have a phase in order to save money. Or for the grants we get.
That's one
And
reason.
And if we use spaces with one contractor, that's still not gonna work. Because they have to give a contractor, they're going to get the grants.
I think there's,
It would be the same contract, we
Yeah.
just are not ready to bid all these products right now.
Yeah.
In order to meet one of those grants.
we lose the summer construction season basically if we do that. We won't start until after the Garlic Fest. Well, Glencoe, we could probably, but anyway, yeah, we're still months away from getting through all the design and the permitting for this. And that could, if we're not starting on one of these projects, that's going to put one of them in jeopardy because it won't be done by the September deadline.
The permit process is longer than normal right now, right?
It just depends. The good thing is the only county facility we're dealing with for any of these projects is Glencoe, and that's permitted. That's done. The rest of these are just, since it's on a city street, we're just dealing with Clean Water Services, which again is fast, but it's simpler than needing the county right away.
Eddie, which ones are we ready to do like this summer? Which one?
I'm going to defer to Brian, but
That one.
this one and I think commercial would be the first two ready, I think.
That could be done this year.
Well,
I mean, currently, right now, we're paying to 313th improvements or designs done, they're in the door for funding right now.
So that's close.
So that's very close. Commercial, we're pushing hard to get that one done, because that was one of the council's requests. And it's an easier one to start. And as Andy mentioned, I want to go to much further than city hall package. So I see those 3 projects.
Your estimation of the two.
Some of them, yes. And then the other ones we believe will start with fall and winter of this year. Okay.
And with the conclusion that we have in the fall and winter time, huge, actually, it would be great to like December and now. But are we going to look at it during the fall, or should we push it over back in the next summer? To make sure you don't have an extra overriding cost.
Yeah, it was part rate that was there, but it's also the section of the road that we opened up to reconstruct. Kind of opened a ceiling in the ground, I should say. We had compacted rock for years. We took it up because it was not as good in the section that of cottage we were all talking about. Once you kind of took that gravel up, you got into the clays, it kind of opened up that moisture that's always just been protected. And then you got into the softer soils. So we're looking at some of these street sections a little different. This time we have better options. We've engaged the geotech that create a pavement management plan, the recommendations to have better solutions than just have a contractor go out there and place it. We're gonna analyze this, separate it as they pull up the asphalt. See if that's way, as a potential cost saving as well. So we'll bid it as one way and then see if they don't have to build as much.
So the followers are still safe.
In sections, yeah, they will take longer.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want them to, hey, let's just get them out in 3 months. We'll allow them to do some of the sidewalk work and some trench work during the fall, and it's all up to Mother Nature, right? And it depends on the winter we have. But then put it on hold for a little bit for your final payment. I really don't. We paved Jesse May's park, the parking lot in the winter. Generally, you do not want to pay roadways in temperature less than 45, 50 degrees outside. So there is a window in the winter. You just don't pay.
Right.
So the contractor needs to plan around that. And then when the spring comes, you don't pay in rain. So look at your options when the temperature is good. But yeah, we will guide that a lot better on this one. It was the unknown of cottage last year that surprised everybody.
Just one other question is, like the mayor said, if we get it all done, then there's no reason to get a grant for it. So if we do part of it, we still have options to get a grant. Is that,
And there's definitely options. Once one of these are done, then we apply for a project that's already planned for.
Right.
To offset, or it's a new project that's on the list that we get it on. I agree with the mayor that I'm not sure how the small city allotment grants work on a size of project. The ones that we have been successful over the last couple of years have been the smaller ones. So we got 100% hit rate for the last 3 years in Iowa, where we don't know what happened prior to that.
We get them every year. It's just
But they're smaller projects.
the nice thing now is when I first started, the project limit was 50,000,
Yeah.
then it went to 100,000, and now it's $250,000. So I mean we get a good chunk of work done on Commercial Street for that amount of money. So
Mayor, can I make one comment?
Yes.
Finish up. If we, Dave, with your saving thing is a good idea, but if we tore all that up in one summer, we wouldn't have very many popular, we wouldn't be no popular content.
You wouldn't have to be, right?
No, you can't do it one summer. You have to actually-
So I'm just contract.
You got potential risk of escalation costs
No,
throughout a second year. So we split it up into different contractors. That is one of the unfortunate over the last couple of years is the always the market. We've seen the contracting and construction costs, material costs, labor costs. Everyone's experiencing it everywhere, right, with inflation as well. So that's one of the key reasons why we recommended getting the CMGC contractor on board for the public works facility to help get those to the bottom ahead of time. Try to.
I'll just close with this. We told folks that we would build some sidewalks, and I want to do that this summer. I think if we waited to package everything together, we're missing this entire construction season, and we're starting a little bit later. I'd like to get some projects going. And then as soon as the garlic festival's over, we'll get to all the rest of it. But I think we can easily combine, to your point, Councilor Page, none of these are going to be solo projects. We'll be combining 2, if not 3 of them for 2 to 3 bids max.
And Andy, I want to echo your comments as well. People are wanting to see results. And when they know that we, passed this gas tax and we said we're going to do X, we need to deliver X. And I think that, the more that we can do, even if it's smaller piece here and there, people are going to appreciate those results. They expect to see it. And I think, as long as we continue to move forward in this exactly creating that space and those sidewalks and things like that, folks are gonna, be happy. They're really, really be happy.
Good. Move on.
Anything else, Brian?
No,
Thanks so much. Good conversation. Thank you. All right, next up, we have a resolution, this evening, a resolution 2221. That's the approval of the supplemental budget expenditure of the ARPA funds. And Bill? Andy, yeah.
I'll take it out.
Well, with that.
Thank you. So resolution 2221 before you. Really kind of boils down to a technical requirement of council. For budgetary and expenditure statute reasons. You've known about the $1,800,000 ARPA grant we got from the state for quite a while. You all had put together a plan of putting 800,000 of that into the West Union pedestrian path. You had a plan for quite a while to put the other $1 million into the Jesse Mays playground improvements, among other things, here on site. But to be consistent with statute, that $1,800,000 wasn't actually in our budget that you all adopted in June. It came a little bit after, right after, as a matter of fact. So it's not technically in the budget. As earmarked funds, as an earmarked grant, according to state statute 294, 3282, council still needs to pass a resolution that authorizes the actual, planned expenditure of those funds. So it's really kind of just a technical completion of receiving those funds and authorizing them going out the door. So that's what this resolution is. And I stand for any questions you may have.
All right. Any questions for Bill?
Pretty easy one. I'm down. I'll move it.
$1.8 million, actually. And a beautiful new playground out there, by the way.
Yes. So I moved to adopt resolution 2221 to authorize the pension of the legislature from University of ARPA.
Okay.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The opposed say nay. Nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving on, 9, we have nothing for new business. No unfinished business this evening. And then we're down to the city manager report. Andy.
Okay, well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just looking up something right now. I guess a couple things I'll touch on. Is yes, Lori got the information to the county this morning to make our local option levy ballot measure official, and they came back with a number 34-322. So that's there. I'll start. We did engage a lobbyist to work with us on the semiconductor issues. So we've been meeting with him regularly. He's attending all of the committee meetings in Salem and giving us regular reports. So we're doing some strategizing there. Our neighbors to the south did come out with a map that shows in testimony how much land they're looking to add. So that's out there. If anyone is interested, we can share that map. We went over it a little bit at the UGPAC meeting last week, but it's a fairly big number. And I know that the legislature and others are kind of grappling with that right now. And so that's part of our equation too, is having the North Plains play into that. And there's other cities in Washington County that are noticing this too, and they are surrounded by rural reserves, and you're wondering, should ours get reversed along with, if Hillsborough's does? So a lot of conversations taking place, and since North Plains doesn't have rural reserves, and everything we're wanting to do is just playing by the rules that were set out by the legislature 10 years ago in the Grand Bargain, and we have undesignated lands. Ours is a little more of a more straightforward expansion. We hosted staff from Wyden's office and Bonamici's office last week, as well as the county's lobbyist. We got a meeting coming up with the county chair. So we're getting the word out about North Plains. So there'll be more to come there. And then finally, what was the other thing I was gonna talk about? Oh. We'll probably have a URA meeting, if not next meeting in March, maybe the first one in April. We have the attorney provided a purchase and sale agreement for a piece of property in town, so I've communicated with the seller on that, so there'll be more to come there in the future. And that's about all I have.
Andy, the UGB expansion process, so I know that on the path, that the path made a recommendation. And so can you just speak to us about like, what's the next step after that? And then, if and when it gets to the city council, and if and when the city council, approves it, what happens after that? Can you just kind of walk through that process with us?
I'll do some of that and then I'll defer to Bill on some of this too. Some of the time.
Yeah, but just kind of like.
Yeah. I don't think we have the here so much. No, we don't. Well, this wasn't your presentation today.
No, here, it's okay.
Okay, well, here's the exact process. Yes. So the PAC finalized the expansion recommendation, check that box. We did all the rest here. Then we move into this. The dates that Bill threw up earlier were pretty much similar. We were talking about this earlier today because of the noticing and everything. We should be able to, in 3 days, working on the phase 2 report, which isn't just a map, which is this is what the PAC recommended. The map is one component. The rest of it is synthesizing all the information that we've been doing with really about the what they call the location analysis. It's determining north, south, east, and west. Why was the prioritization? How does it score in transportation and the economic fees, and all of that stuff gets thrown into this phase 2 report. The DLCD has to look at that eventually. But the planning commissions should see that report and the map at the May meeting, and then we're planning that the city council would have that in June. So we may do, even though there was 3 planning commissioners on our PAC, we may do a work session with them in April before that meeting, just so they're on board with the whole process. And then you start going through the DLCD and LCDC timeframes, which are going to take, many days of challenges, unless the legislature makes an UGB change for us. This is one Bill can talk about better than me, but this is sort of the LCDC process. Oh, and that's an acronym for land use, state land use agency.
I think Andy covered. I mean, right now before the legislature, we put in the ask, Mayor, via testimony, is put in the ask, the legislature amends our UGB via legislation, as in they pass legislation that includes, okay, here's North Plains' new UGB. The bill that the Joint Semiconductor Committee is considering, Senate Bill 4, has a provision that the governor is given executive power to supersede UGB expansion with their pen. And so that may also happen. Both of those potential things could happen. We don't know, but that would certainly shorten the timeline of what would happen. But yes, city council, Washington County Board, LCDC. Okay. And just to put the word out about this, just to kind of, it's coming. When you hear land use advocates and appeals and challenges and all that, those are actions that are filed after they review the document that's coming our way. This study right here that's coming to you, that we take to the county after council hears it, and then it goes to the state. If there are any legal challenges, appeals, all that fun stuff, it's finding inconsistencies or problems in the document that's being written right now. So careful hearing of it by the planning commission and then your consideration. all super important, so it'll be a good big step.
So it could potentially be, in a perfect world with a timeline, it could be this fall. If the governor doesn't take legislative action and it goes through this process, we could see, and in a perfect world, it could be fall, for a decision.
Mayor, that is correct.
And then if it's legislative action, it's much sooner.
That is all.
Well, we don't know when, but it's much sooner.
My question on this. There's been a lot of news articles out lately. One I saw this today was the Big Thin. I don't know if you saw that. I went through that, and I can tell Hillsboro's not playing fair. They don't want to, my understanding is Callaway is against holding public hearings because of the opposition. Because 1,000 Friends, I think they had 190 letters sent to, from what I saw there, against. And they're trying to do what, 3 sites for 1,800 acres? And Solomon's trying, has passed 3 bills that never got passed in the last 6 years to overturn grand bargain. And I went to a CPO meeting 4 years ago, and that's what she was talking about. And at that time, she was talking about that they're having they're gonna hire 3 lobbyists to work on that. So, plus Janine Solomon's on the committee, and I guess on the House is Nathan Sosa.
Mhm.
And we have Zippity Doodad.
We have redistricted representation that doesn't know much about North Plains. Yes.
That's why we have been working our tails off. In a grassroots efforts. There's been a lot of heavy lifting from those 2 gentlemen right there, and a lot of time spent, in various ways on my end as well. But we've had to do a lot of it ourselves.
It looks like we've lost Jolene on this one. Yeah. Let's be honest.
Here's the juxtaposition though of kind of the 2 asks. And this is
See that.
before testimony. Yeah.
The red area, they don't want to put anything there is industrial, like semiconductor plants is what
That's what Dirk says.
Yeah.
but I can see where, cut you off, but I can see where 1,000, and I guess Metro's not on board with it either, right? Is what you told me?
Metro joined the appeal of Hillsboro's EOA. Has all of the acreage need that pushes this. So Metro appealed that. Joined the appeal of that.
So I can see why the mayor of Hillsborough does not want to have public meetings and try to surpass that while we're doing due diligence and going through the process. And he's trying to cut us off the pass.
Council, whatever happens, as my grandmother said, we can sleep like we don't sleep. With how we've conducted our process. That doesn't mean we're not lobbying for whatever breadcrumbs we can get. I think it's way better than that. But correct, this process has been, the city's UDB process has been a normal, extremely transparent, extremely standard process. And Hillsborough, for what it's trying to do, has had to come up with just a different process.
And
Yeah, so
And?
everything with not everything with the color code. So in the yellow area there, it's kind of cut into 2/3 of it right there that Andy's highlighting. That's currently within the city's UGB. And then just to the west of it, there's like a little orange dotted line right there. I think there's a Butcher Creek.
That's Wyville.
Yeah, Wyville Creek.
All
To the west of that line, everything to the west of that line that's shaded is outside this, not only outside the city's UGB, but are now rural reserves buffer. Exactly, that was the Grand Bargain Rural Reserve Buffer. And Hillsborough is basically what they're doing is trying to get just trying to repeal the Grand Bargain. All that land before the Grand Bargain. Yeah, I don't know if you remember way back when, that's when I said earlier, I started working on things for the city way back when, that was this. The urban reserves way back when, for Hillsborough, were actually all that shaded area that we now see. And the Grand Bargain turned all that rural. And so, and then the 5 cities in Washington County kind of all worked over a number of months on coming up with an agreement about where urban reserve and rural reserve, undesignated land would be. And so Hillsborough overwhelmingly lost the most urban reserve to the Grand Bargain. They're just trying to repeal that. The process they're going about it, whatever, that's whatever.
Shady.
I won't throw any adjectives out there, but I will say that earlier on when they visited with us about, when their EOA was being close to complete, they said, our goal here is just to get back to the pre-Grand Bargain urban reserve map. And we compared maps and that's their goal. That's what they said. That's what they stated all early on. It was their hope, and that's what they're trying to do.
So really, regardless of what they're trying to do, what we have been doing is presenting our argument in a very transparent, open manner. And we're not in Metro, so we don't have that layer to worry about. And, regardless of how this turns out, I still feel like we're still going to be a winner in that we will be accomplishing what we set out to do. And that is to extend our urban growth boundary and provide more employment and housing for this community. And, I can't keep my eye off that ball. I mean, all this, the semiconductor, to me, that's like an added, it'd be just sweet to be able to be that chosen spot. But also, this is a great opportunity, regardless, I just feel like we're still in a wonderful position to be able to move our vision forward with the growth that we're planning, but more importantly, just with the process. And so it's exciting either way, as far as I'm concerned. It's not over yet. Not at all.
Keep fighting.
So, yep.
That concludes my report.
Oh,
So,
I opened a can of worms.
but there's
No,
there's so much to it, and it's in the news, and it's not going away. It's going to continue to be in the news, and people are going to reach out and ask questions. And I think it's just really important that we all understand it. And you go home and you digest this even more. You have more questions. Please reach out to Andrew and Bill. That would be awesome. So,
are we gonna bring up fences or are we gonna hide that?
I really have nothing new to add. I know some residents are going to show up at the planning commission on Wednesday. I spoke with a few over the weekend. Steve has been. So we've told them the only path forward is going to be some change to the development code. And so they know that. So I think if you were going to show up on Wednesday.
Did you meet with him?
he has not answered my emails.
Oh,
So
no.
that's okay.
My problem is I don't understand why. It's code violation. It's done by the builder, not us. I don't understand why. I mean, I bought a house over in Sunset Ridge and I was lied to. Like a bunch of other residents. And we didn't attack the city.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a point of conversation on Wednesday. Is the residents want to come? Okay, I don't feel it's on them to have to make this change. I feel it's on someone else's burden to have to make that change. But this gives the planning commission the opportunity to hear their concerns, just like the city council has. The planning commission kind of governs the development code in the city, and to date, they really haven't heard from those residents, and this is their opportunity. So yes, there will come a day when you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's the 30
I'll be there.
days.
You're the ex officio? Okay, great.
That's
And,
exciting.
Household reports?
I attended the economic development. They're gonna put a proposal to go from 5 to 7. And then I brought up,
Members?
yeah, 5 to 7 members. Sorry about that.
Okay, no.
And I did bring up, and I think everybody that goes to a meeting, to let everybody make sure that they know there is a state of the city and that each department should be represented. I brought that up. You're welcome. And I also brought up the ice cream social. And I thought with economic development, there was a chance that they could be involved in some of this coming up. And it sounds like they're go-getters. There's the one that showed up today, economic. What's her name? Lisa.
And Chris, who's on the budget committee there.
If NEPA ever wanted somebody,
Yeah,
I'll tell my wife about that.
oh, good.
But she might be, because she brought up that she looks for stuff. So I'm not sure what her situation is. But she's a go-getter.
All right. Any other council reports?
I was able to, reschedule the engineering day over at, Northland's, elementary school grade. It was snowed out the first day, so we had the last Friday. And, it's pretty neat, the kids had a bunch of different designs, but the most important thing I wanted to communicate to them was that doing their own design, each one had a team built work with it, how the kids. And sometimes you're explaining about how they wanted to have it done, what they wanted to run with. And so I had a chance to have them reflect not on design, but having things done your own way is really neat because you get to have your own design and get them faster. Or you have no idea, you can start. But you have a team, you get to have many people ideas. And sometimes other ideas are good because you build off of them. And then the kids got each group's idea, but each person's idea is in the team. And we all demonstrated like this lunar lander project. And they got to see everybody else's team. So each person had to share their idea. And from that, they can build something bigger. So that's how you change the world and build a company. You see what somebody else does, and you improve on it. And then they'll see what you've done, that's good, and they also do. And that's how engineering works. So I gotta have a good chat with them and discuss that, and try to do it, and maybe do it next year, and do that. Good times.
All right. Okay. Anything? No? Okay. Yeah, so just the state of the city is the 23rd of March at 6 o'clock here. And and then I am going to Washington, DC with the League of Oregon Cities. They invited me to go. And it's the National League of Cities Conference. So it'll be really a great opportunity for me just to hear what other cities are doing across the country, which is going to be really exciting. And then they've got a few classes that they've got us leadership classes and some other things that they have us signed up for. So that's going to be kind of exciting. So I'll be gone from the 24th through the 28th. So of this month. Yeah. Yeah. Cherry blossoms or something. Yeah. I just hope it's not snowed in. It would be nice to have a little, pop of spring while I'm there. I know, right? So, but that'll be really interesting, and I'm really eager just to learn what I can and bring back what I can and that sort of thing. So it should be kind of fun, and it's not on the city's dime, so zero cost to the city, which is great. So, Other than that, nothing else to report? Last call, council? All right. I'll go ahead and close our city council meeting at 8:10. Thank you all.
Wow.